Hello, and welcome to Tell Me About Your Game, the show where we talk with new game designers about their projects to help them get the attention that they deserve. Today, we're chatting with Andre, the designer of Kravestorm. Andre, welcome to Tell Me About Your
Hey,
Game.
thank you, Jeff. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so Kravestorm is a interesting game with, shall we say, somewhat unusual theme. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it? What's your elevator pitch for Kravestorm?
Okay, so Kravestorm is a card battler. I always struggle to say card battler. I don't know why. Which is okay. Anyway, for 2 to 4 players, and the goal of the game is to defend your capital when you're attempting to destroy your opponent's capital. This is a world of decay, the theme that you mentioned, that is a bit out of the norm. It's much more tied to decay and substance abuse world rather than generic fantasy or something more like conventional fantasy, let's say. Um, and yeah, you deploy Kravers. We call Kravers to our units. They are relying on a substance that it's called Nekthar, which cause great power but also great misery. So yeah, it's a game that you win at the expense of yourself. So you always have to suffer in order to win.
Yeah, sounds like life. So why did you decide to make this game, and specifically, why did you go with this somewhat unusual theme for the game?
Okay, so I started making this game a very long time ago, and it was a board game in the beginning. I took some inspiration from resource management trade games like Catan or even Age of Empires, even though that was from the computer, but still I like the management of resources and trade and etc. like this. But it started as a joke, so I made a very silly world with a lot of very stupid little jokes. Like it was internally between me and my friends that it was a self-contained product for our Secret Santa event. So we had very very stupid jokes, but okay. With time, I realized that my friends were giving suggestions like, oh, you could improve this and that. So the game evolved somehow into a very serious. Suddenly it was very, it started as a complete joke, and suddenly I'm launching a crowdfunding campaign for this game. So yeah, it got serious. And in the meantime, while the game evolved, we had to change the silly theme. And I didn't want to go into fantasy like elves and dwarfs, and so I shifted a little bit to keep a bit of the humorous tone, but make it more dark, like darker and more extreme, more surreal. I don't know. Sometimes it's just about making it as weird as possible. So I also wanted to distinguish the style of the game. I don't know if that was the question, if I
Yes.
answered the question.
Oh, you definitely did. Have you got any feedback about the theme? Because obviously, again, it not only is it unusual, some people might find it disturbing. Have you had any concerns or discussion with players about the theme of really what's basically a game about addiction?
Yeah, I'm aware it's a edgy topic, and it's not for everyone for sure. I'm aware this is for a niche of people. I gathered most of feedback from Reddit forums. Like I was posting a lot of posts on subreddits connected to tabletop design, and gathering feedback either on the mechanics, the illustrations, the theme. So yeah, I got a bit of mixed reactions into that. Like some people are not looking into such a edgy style of game. Other people said that it was really nice, and I think it's a bit dividing this theme. But yeah, in general, the playtesters, the some of my friends, the people that I show the game to, they said at least it's interesting. It might not be for everyone, but yeah, it's something different.
So that leads to the natural follow-up question. Who is the audience for this game? Who are you making this game for?
Okay, I always joke as this game is for half nerds like me, uh, because I always liked this nerdy stuff like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, games, etc. But never too much into you know into a nerd position that I would know the name of all characters and locations and sublores and everything. So I call myself a half nerd, and this game is for half nerds that don't want to that don't want to invest so much time and effort studying a game like as complex as Magic the Gathering, for example, because yeah, I don't want uh, to, Magic the Gathering is a bit overwhelming to join when you're not part of it for a long time, because there's so much that you have to learn and figure out. So my attempt of this game is to make somehow a game that gives you a lot of agency and strategy, and it's a game of skill, but with much less overwhelming introduction to the rules and the gameplay of the game. So yeah,
Okay. So I think it's safe to say, though, the target audience is not children.
definitely not.
No, no.
It's
and
not
and
a game
and
for the family. No, 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 not like that.
and no pun intended, given the theme. But I'm assuming you're also not viewing this as a gateway game. This is not for people who are brand new to the gaming hobby. 'Cause I think you said
No,
there's a
no.
little bit of complexity to it.
Yeah, definitely. It's a game for people that at least already played some other card games like Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic the Gathering, something. It's very good to have that background. I had playtesters that were playing Magic before, and they got the game very quickly. Uh, I also had playtesters that never played any card game whatsoever, and it took a little bit longer, but they also managed to get it. So, but yeah, I agree with you. It's definitely not a game for a completely casual audience. It's not a party game, not a family game. It's somehow what is the style? The name is lifestyle game.
Oh, okay. Um, so while you were working on Kravestorm, and obviously you said you've been working on it for quite a long time, were there any board games or maybe even video games that you drew inspiration from during the design process?
Yeah, in the beginning, mostly Catan, as I mentioned, and other board games like that you had to manage resources and control areas. So, but as it evolved, I tried to keep some aspects from the board game. I always tried to keep the location, the geographical, physical, meaning of the game, just even using cards. So we have the capitals. That's the core idea, because before we had the board, we had this X grid map that you had to attempt to conquer someone else's capital, and we kept the same structure, the same goal, except we are now using cards only. So the inspiration I took the most recently, it was from Magic the Gathering, and I have to say that I played Magic the Gathering two times in my life. Once when I was like 14 years old, and the other time it was last year. So I'm not a Magic the Gathering player. I'm also not a Magic the Gathering collector. I'm a Magic the Gathering fan, though. I follow a lot of YouTube channels on Magic the Gathering. I'm in the loop with everything that is going on in Magic the Gathering, even though I don't play it, I don't collect it, but still, I think it's a really great game. I'm always fascinated by the world, the universe of Magic the Gathering, even though I don't play the game. So yeah.
Okay, interesting. As you were working on Kravestorm, from the beginning, were there any really core design principles, the non-negotiables that you wanted to be a part of this game? So what were the things that you said, like, no matter what happens, these elements need to be a part of Kravestorm?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's my favorite question because I really like to talk about those. And yeah, we have some core rules for our game design. And when I look at Magic the Gathering, continuing the topic of from the previous question, I really don't like the part from Magic the Gathering that suddenly you have tokens, you have to figure out cards or something that it's not included in the game. So that's one thing that I made sure that we would never have, something that it's not included in the set of that you buy. So when you get this game, you get everything. You don't need extra components or homemade things. The same goes for counters, and I always avoided as well to make some effects like during 2 turns this and that. So I don't have anything that requires bookkeeping. The only thing that requires bookkeeping in Kravestorm is the HP, so the life from the little guys and the capitals, but that's measured with a simple D20. We also use the D20 for rolling for effects, so to summarize the answer to this question is just to make it as simple as possible in terms of rules and components, and maximize the outcome from the components that you have. So we also have status. So we also track status of the Kravers, and we use the card rotation to mark them. So we are not adding tokens or anything. Yeah, that's one rule of design that I have, and yeah, now I don't recall something that is worth mentioning, because this has a lot inside of this. Yeah.
So you want it to be a self-contained game. Someone's got the box of Kravestorm, they've got everything they need. I suppose, like you said in Magic, you need to add a token, so people have to buy extra components just to make it work. So you want Kravestorm to be a self-contained unit, but still have the depth of Magic, or approaching the depth of Magic, maybe.
Yeah, maybe not to the same level, but somehow as much as possible. Yeah. I'm focusing the sorry, I'm missing the word right now. The format of the game, the business model of the game, let's say. I'm avoiding the typical traditional trading card game. I'm considering Kravestorm to be a expandable card game, because I also am a bit disappointed with the trading card game model, because I buy Pokemon. I'm a Pokemon guy, and I see that in Pokemon and Magic the Gathering is the same. How many sets they are releasing every year, how much the prices are raising, and it seems to me like a predatory business model. And you also can pay to win in the case of Magic. It's very expensive to make a competitive deck. So I'm trying to fight those aspects of card game that are connected to the randomness of the booster packs, that you never know which pieces of the game you will get. So the idea of an expandable card game is to give you a product. Here, there is everything that you might ever need. So build your deck now.
So I guess you could say that there's a little bit of irony there, because even though the theme of Kravestorm is addiction, you are fighting the addiction model of the collectible trading card games.
Yes. Yeah, I'm keeping that for myself. Yeah, I'll keep buying Pokemon products. Yeah. No, just kidding.
So, other than the theme, are there any key rules or mechanics that you think define Kravestorm and give it its identity?
Yeah, I would say that there are three things besides everything else that it's mostly common in every card battler. So the main one is the status. So I already mentioned the card rotation to mark the status. We have 4 different types of status, because the cards can be put in 4 different directions. So we have the ready status. As the cards are played, they are ready. We have the exhausted, that is tilted to the left. We have the wasted, that it's turned upside down, and we have overdosed, that it's tilted to the right. So the idea here was to build some kind of a clock that when your Craver becomes overdosed, you tilt it to the right. So on the next turn, we have the so-called untilt phase in the beginning of your turn. So you just simply turn it 90 degrees on the clock, I mean clockwise. So it becomes wasted next status, then it becomes exhausted, then it becomes ready. So that's one of the cool things, I think, in my opinion, about Kravestorm. That's the status, because those status punish your tempo. Also, it gives they also penalize the position of those Kravers, because they will take extra damage based on that status.
Oh,
And that's the first one. So the second one is the formation. So it's the positioning matters. It's when you deploy a Craver, it always goes to the right of your Garrison. We call it Garrison. And when it attacks, it always goes to the left. So this introduces a little bit of a chess game here, because the damage is always dealt from left to right. And according to your decisions to play first this one and second this one, or attack with this one or other, every decision matters on the damage that you will be dealt after. I mean, because it respects the order of the garrison, and you have to take the positioning into account. The last one, it's the D20 roll. As I also mentioned, that we have D20 for some kind of effects, and most of the cases that require D20 are after attacking, you always face a side effect. So if you attack, let's say, with a very, very weak Craver, you probably don't face a side effect. But the stronger the Craver he is, the stronger the probability that the side effect will be bigger. For example, you might either take recoil damage, so your Craver attacks and then it gets injured during the attack, or more commonly, we roll a d20, and based on the stats of the Craver, you will either get wasted or overdosed or exhausted. So it's also interesting, and I know there are a lot of players, especially of competitive card games, that hate the random number generation, like the dice aspect of the game. But I think that it was quite well balanced so far. We managed to come to this sweet spot where the D20 doesn't really change the agency that you have and the skill that you have. It doesn't destroy your strategy per se. So it really feels in theme with the game. When you consume too much, you don't know exactly how your body will react. So that's the part of the lore that we are trying to replicate with the D20.
okay. So you've built a little bit of a risk versus reward mechanic. You want to take a stronger attack, there's a greater risk by doing that.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, you know, as someone who does independent design myself, I've definitely learned that there are times when there is something that you think is interesting and it doesn't end up being fun. But eventually you find those things, those elements that bring the players back to the game. So where's the fun in your game? And I don't mean that in like a judgmental way, but what is it that you think brings players back to Kravestorm time and time again? What are the things that they go, wow, this is so cool. This is why I want to keep playing it.
I think it's the agency and the depth that you have to explore in the game. Even myself as a designer, sometimes we go into iterations and we change a lot of things. So when I print a new prototype, I play test it by myself. So I play again against myself. And even after so many months of seeing these cards every day, I can find, but this card that is supposed to be for defense can also win a game suddenly. So I like this exploration of the possibilities, because when you're a designer, you create things with a certain intention, but it's nice to see when your intentions are getting out of control, and the players' creativity, they will just shift completely what the card is supposed to do. So I like that. I really like
Yeah, having that space for emergent strategies. I've seen that before in some of my own designs, and in other games I really enjoy, where you go, this is I never saw that combination that a player made, but it was just so satisfying. I agree, to see
Yeah.
someone take your structure and do something completely unexpected with it, to the point where you're going, oh wow, that was very cool.
Yeah.
I did not see that coming. So yeah, I completely agree. That's a fantastic experience as a designer to see your players do that. So
Yeah,
you
and makes the
mentioned
most
okay.
it makes the most memorable moments
Yeah.
when we are sitting at the table on the bar and suddenly a guy wins in the
Yeah.
weirdest possible way. Yeah, we will remember that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's the kind of thing that a purely deterministic game, which again, that can still happen in a purely deterministic game, but when there's a little bit of uncertainty, a little bit of fog of war, if you will, the
Mhm.
space for that increases just a bit when you're faced with some random chance and that you can't predict everything.
Yeah, totally.
So you mentioned the expandable card model of Kravestorm, that you don't like the trading card model, you don't like the random booster packs where you don't know what you're going to get, you don't like the pay to win model. How exactly does the expandable card model work with Kravestorm specifically?
Okay, so we have the core set. It's pretty much done. I'm just in the part that I'm finishing the illustrations. It's composed of 320 cards, so you will get this. It's a lot of cards, but it includes 2 copies of each legal cards that you might have double in your deck, because our decks are only of 40 cards, are composed of only 40 cards, and you can have up to 2 copies of most cards. I will not go into details because it's not relevant. So you basically get these 320 cards. That's all the cards that you might need at this point. Let's say that there will be an expansion 1 year after. So the first expansion comes, and it's exactly the same idea. Whatever cards that this expansion will bring to the table, they will come in doubles, and whatever the maximum amount allowed to have in a deck, uh, it will be covered. So every time you buy a product, you make sure that you have all the cards in the game possible. It would be like Magic the Gathering. You could buy a few products and suddenly you have these 30,000 different cards that they have in existence. Yeah.
So do you worry about the concept of power creep, which I'm sure you're familiar with, that as new expansion packs come, assuming and hoping that Kravestorm is successful and you have multiple expansions down the road, which is I think what we're all rooting for you. How do you plan to address the issue of power creep? Because there's always that worry that players have, well, you can't be competitive with just the core set. You need to buy expansion 1, expansion 2, expansion 3 to be competitive. Is that
Of
something you
course.
have thought about, or are you not quite at that point yet?
Yeah, definitely. I already put a lot of thought into that. The answer to that is that I have a very specific and comprehensive and exhaustive Excel sheet to generate the cards. So I start from the point of the cost, like the Nekthar cost, let's say the mana cost of the card. I start there, and then whatever cost I decide that this card will have, and if it will be an attacking card, a defensive card, a permanent card, or a on deployment card, we have these 4 types only. It will go through different 3 directions. So this, to reply to your question, will allow me to keep in track regarding the power creep, because the values are predetermined forever. Like this will not change ever. Now there's a thing that will change for sure, that it's the abilities, the effects that the cards have, that it's much harder to measure and to control. uh, and it's good that it is this way, because it's good when you can break somehow the game, when it's not too restrained or too tame. So yeah, I thought about this question. I will try to avoid it as much as possible through playtesting, because we are playtesting a lot. Like, this game has been through hundreds of playtesting sessions, and now that we are reaching the beta phase, it will get even more players, blind playtesting, etc. We are expanding that. So yeah, through playtesting, we will always try to avoid broken cards from future expansions that will suddenly break the meta and you have to buy the new product because the previous one is outdated. Yeah, we'll do our best to avoid that.
Okay. Well, I think we have teased the game long enough. Let's take a look. at Kravestorm?
Sure. So here, we have a huge table, as we said, because I wanted to cover different parts of the game. Just a quick note: this is the tabletopia version of the game, but it's not ready yet to use. Not, it's just for the sake of
Sure.
the demonstration of this podcast. So maybe you can just double click on a card just to talk a little bit. So here we have a Craver card. It's one of our units. And just to talk a little bit about the card, on the top left corner we have the cost. So we have one sangre and two generic. On the right side we have the life, these two with the heart. And then there are two little rectangles within the text box. One is called Soma, which is reflecting the physicality of the Craver. So it's about his body, about his position on the Garrison. We have, for example, Slender, that doesn't take a slot from the Garrison, because the Garrisons have slots. I should have mentioned this before, but you cannot just play infinite Cravers unless they are Slender, because they don't take a slot from the Garrison.
Interesting.
Then we also, thank you. Then we also have the opposite, that is robust. It takes double slot. We have mobile, that allows it to move within the Garrison, because as I've mentioned before, the Cravers are deployed to the right. When they attack, they move to the leftmost position. So this one allows you to move around freely. We also have, maybe you can change and show a different card.
Do you have a preference which one I show, or should I just pick one?
No, you can just show another one, because the previous one had a green rectangle. This one has the blue. There is also a red, and there is also a yellow. So one of the things that I also took from Magic the Gathering, that it's hard to do, it's when you have a table full of cards and you don't know exactly what the text of each card is. It's a bit of a mess. So I think that this option that I added 4 different colors and 4 different symbols for when the effects trigger exactly. So you only have 4 possibilities. It's on defense, on attack, permanent, or on deployment. And this one is the blue one. Maybe you can show a different one. Just maybe that blue. Yeah, it can be this one. So this one has a permanent effect that you can just exhaust for some kind of effect. And there's, I don't know how much I should go into the cards, but this should be the overview that about the cards.
So why don't we take a look at the initial setup?
Yeah, on the initial setup. So this is how the game starts. This is simulating 1 versus 1. I have here the 4 cards that you start the game with. So every player will always start with 4 cards. The horizontal card is the capital card. Maybe you can open. Unfortunately, it always opens on the vertical position. I don't know why.
Yeah, people can turn their phone sideways.
Yeah. So this is the card that is the base of everything. It's the capital card. As you can see, there are 3 symbols on the top. One tells you the starting hand size, because it's not always the same. Also, the second one is the Garrison, the number of Cravers that you can have deployed at the same time. Then you have the life. So the goal of the game is to destroy the capital of your opponent while defending yours. Underneath, you have the symbol of Hempa. This is the Hempa symbol. It's green. It's just the production of this capital. And then you also have a gamma effect on the bottom. This refers to a one-time use effect that you can do it every game, whenever you want, basically. And after you trigger this effect, after you activate this effect, you simply flip the card, and on the other side, the effect is gone, to keep it as simple as possible. So the other 3 cards that we have there, they are the Nektharis. We call Nektharis to the cards that produce nectar. So this is very much like Magic. I didn't try to reinvent the wheel here. I just I like how it looks, just the symbol there. You know what it means straight away.
Yep.
So the middle one, the middle card, it's a little bit different. This is the Alpha Nectary. Each player has one by default every time they start the game, and you cannot have more. That there's only one per player. When you exhaust this card to produce nectar, if you bury a card, this means if you take one card from your hand and put it underneath the capital. So when we put it underneath the capital card, the horizontal one, we call it burying, and those cards are permanently out of the game. You will never see them again. So when you bury a card like this, you can increase your production from 1 to 2 with this card only. Also, if you bury a Whisper, that it's basically an instant card, a very powerful card, you get to draw 2. And if you bury a Nectary, another card that it's intended to produce nectar, you get to draw 1. We added this mechanism. Okay, when you asked me about the mechanics that turned the game more interesting, I forgot about this one, but this is one of my favorites actually, because you always have the opportunity to increase your nectar every turn by sacrificing one card from your hand, and that fixes two problems. One is the mana screw, so you don't have mana to play the cards, and the other problem is dead cards. Like you never get to have dead cards in your hand because they are always they can always be used as fuel for production and drawing, which is also very important. So yeah, I've talked about this setup. That's how you start the game. Then you have your deck by the side, like with the 40 card deck. And when the game starts, you simply draw 8 for this capital. For different capitals, you might draw a different number of cards.
So are there other Nektharies in the deck?
Yeah. That's okay. That's a good one. One of the things that I wanted to keep always as a core rule of the game design is I really like the magic system of production. I know it's a bit outdated. People kind of hate it or love it. It's there is no middle ground there. I see that a lot of games nowadays, the modern card games, are finding new ways to deal with the resource production of the game by either by using every card to be fuel of resource, or having a separate resource deck or whatever. I really think that this is the best way to have the production, the resource cards in your deck, because it really increases the skill of building a deck on its own. Yeah, and I really like it.
So a quick question about deck building.
Yeah.
Are there rules for building a deck in Kravestorm, or is it
Yeah.
just there's 40 cards, you can't have more than 2 copies of each, and that's it? Or are there other
You
rules?
have there are a few rules, 4 rules, I guess. First one is 40 cards always. The second rule is you might only have 3 whispers. Those are those game changing plot twists cards. You might only have 3 of them, and they must be all different. You cannot have double copies of the same one. That's the first rule. The second rule is you can only have 12 nectaries maximum, up to 12 nectaries of whatever color. And the third rule is 2 copies of the remaining cards. So yeah, those are the rules.
So it's pretty flexible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it just has some limitations to avoid I forgot the word right now, but exploiting too much.
Oh,
Like
gotcha. Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's hop over. I know you've got set up a game in progress here.
Yeah, let's just talk very quickly about it. This is how the table looks mid game. So you have a bunch of cards, a lot of cards on the table, but yeah, that you will just simply add the upgrades. We call it upgrades because we only have 4 different types of cards. I also like it to keep it simple. We don't need more. We have Kravers that are the units. We have upgrades that are meant to buff or give abilities to your capital or to Kravers, and there are actions and whispers. actions are basically whispers that you can only play during your turn. Whispers are instant cards, so they are resolved and they are discarded. So yeah, it's pretty simple on that regard. I also don't like in Magic when I try to play Magic that there are so many types of cards and special rules for each card, and then I don't know if they stay on the table or if they go to some. This one is very intuitive this way. So as I've mentioned, for example, this is our set. We are with our Kravers there. When we attack, we know that the opponent will absorb the damage from the left to the right, and the excess damage that the Craver cannot take anymore will pass to the next one until it reaches the capital, and that's how you win the game, basically.
So that's another difference from Magic, and as in the defender doesn't get to choose who absorbs the attack. There is a very
Yeah.
predefined order in which units are targeted.
Yes. So the idea is that the garrison, so the place where the troops are expecting the enemy to defend the capital, basically they are in a row, and the first one deals with the damage first. Then the logic is that you deploy the guys to defend in a certain order, and when they attack, they move to the front, because if they have to deal damage, they have to go to the front of the garrison. So there's a whole logic trying to make this make sense in the real world, like in the lore of the story. But yeah, on the right side, you just have the how the table looks like at the end of the game. So there's a lot of cards uh, on the table, but mostly of them they are just the upgrades for resources, and yeah, it gets
Okay.
quite heavy in terms of cards on the table, but I think it's still easy to read. You have the Kravers, the capital, and your upgrade. That's it.
Okay. Great. It looks very interesting. And if I'm not mistaken, Andre, you did all of this artwork yourself, correct?
Yeah, I'm still doing it. and I know there are people that are first artists, then game designers. They want to find a purpose to execute their art. I'm completely the opposite. I'm just doing the art because I didn't have any other way. It's not uh, a huge passion or talent or anything like that. I just didn't want to use AI generated art. I didn't want to use stock photos or stock images that are free to use. So I had to create uh, this own world of Kravestorm, and I've spent like 2 years practicing and learning how to draw just for the sake of this game.
I mean, honestly, my props to you. As someone who has absolutely zero artistic talent, I'm constantly amazed by people who can both design a game and also do all of this artwork.
Thank you very much.
So, if anyone who's watching this, Andre, finds Kravestorm intriguing and something they want to learn more about, uh, where would you suggest they follow up on that desire? How would they learn more about the game?
Join our Discord. That's the right place to be if you want to know more about Kravestorm. Also, I try to post some videos from time to time. When I started making the game, I started making a game dev series from day one when I started making the game, just from literally day one. And I also have a YouTube channel that I can suggest for people to follow. And yeah, we have the game found page for the crowdfunding campaign that might go live in a year from now, most likely. Yeah, I'm taking my time.
Okay, great. And I'll there will be links to all of that in the show notes for anyone who's interested. So, Andre, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us about your game. Kravestorm looks extremely interesting.
Thank you very much for having me, Jeff. It was a pleasure. And
Absolutely.
yeah, thank you very much
Um,
for the invitation as well.
so, I'm just going to remind everybody who's watching if you've enjoyed this content, we do have other interviews on the channel. Please like, subscribe, leave some comments, ask some questions. Andre and I will both be keeping an eye on the chat to answer any questions. And if there are any other independent game designers out there who would like to be on Tell Me About Your Game, my contact information will also be in the show notes, so you can reach out. We do have a Discord channel, and everyone who's been on the show and everyone who plans to be on the show, we hang out there, we help one another, we support one another. It is hard enough to be an independent board game designer these days, so our goal is to make it just a little bit easier. So thank you all for watching, and everyone have a great day.